anxiety is actually completely normal, and a little bit of anxiety is helpful. To have no anxiety over this period is actually unhelpful, and that's what we're seeing from the people who are doing pub crawls or who have been too close to each other on the beach. And the other side of that is that for some people the anxiety has been overwhelming. I'd like to talk about a couple of ways that might be helpful to help cope through the COVID-19 pandemic. It's really important to acknowledge our own individual experience of this pandemic. Everybody has had a unique experience, and it's actually unhelpful to compare your experience with someone else's. So watch out for those thoughts that might be around "I'm weak" or "I should be dealing with this better." It's actually important to give yourself permission to feel the way that you feel and to not judge it or to minimize it. The second thing that I'd like to say is that it's important at times like this to identify and focus on our own individual personal strengths. While none of us have lived through a pandemic before, we have all lived through difficult times and we've been able to cope. And it's important to focus on our own personal strengths. It may mean that we ask our family and friends to help us to identify what those strengths are. The next tip that I'd like to give is about focusing on maintaining our mind and body to make sure that we're match fit. This means that focusing on things like making sure that our diet is good, that we're sleeping well, and that we're trying to get as much physical exercise as possible. The other side of that is keeping an eye on what might be unhelpful coping mechanisms like alcohol and drugs, which, while they might provide some immediate relief, if we become dependent on them, cause a whole lot of new set of problems. The last thing I'd like to say is that during this time, we are able to work on developing helpful ways to manage our stress. And I'd like to encourage people to go to our website at thiswayup.org.au, where we've developed a whole series of specific resources to help people maintain their psychological well-being and manage their pandemic distress. Finally, for everybody, it's important to take one day at a time and be kind to ourselves. To reach out to our family and friends if we need additional support, or our GP and our local mental health clinicians.